Welcome to Dirshu Daf HaYomi B'Halacha. Today we are going to be learning Hilchos Tzitzis, Siman Yud. We're going to be seeing only Sif Vav. The three questions, in which some of them are somewhat repetitive from yesterday. Can the corners of a garment be relocated? Is a garment which is too long to be worn required to have tzitzis? And can a person wear a talus with 5 tzitzis? So Sifa, ein koiflin as a talus, you're not allowed to double over the talus, umatilin tzitzis al kanafeha, and then to put the tzitzis on that corner once it's doubled over, kamoshu kafula. And this is the Ramah, avul sarch lahatil ba'arba kanafeha hapshutim. You have to open it up so it's not doubled over. El imkin tafar kula, the only time it's allowed is if it's completely sewn. So because if it's sewn professionally, possibly, that means it's not going to be undone, and therefore it's like you've created this new beged. Even on one side. It says the Rabbi, Yesh omrim techayavin afil below tfira. You're chayav even if it's not sewn. But tov lasos lo tzitzis avlo yivarach le'al. Okay. And then he says, hitel tzitzis al tzitzis. If let's say you already have a pair of tzitzis, you put another strings on that corner, which you only need to do one. So in this chavan levatel harishona, if your intention was to nullify the first one, then chotech harishona ksheret, then just cut off the first one, then it's fine. V'im nischavan hoisif, but if your intention was just to add more tzitzis, alpha pisha chotach achas mishtein psula, even if you cut one of them, it's still puzzle, because it's an issue about toisif. V'yesh machshirin b'chol inyan, the Ramah says some are lenient. V'chein ikar v'koidim shechatach harishonos pasul b'chol inyan. Okay, so the Mishnah Brura says that if it's doubled over, again maybe it should be unfolded. So he says v'im kaflo machmas shehabeged orech ma'od. What if the reason why you doubled it over is because it was just dragging? It's so long. Pishtaim b'komato. Shein yachal labsho el imkein kaflo. You can only really wear it once you fold it over. So yesh poskim the poiter nosel garment tzitzis. Some say you don't have to have tzitzis at all in that. Why? The ain't shame beged love. It doesn't have a shame beged because it's a beged is something that you wear, a garment that you wear. This is too long. Umasik hataz a primagadim diatil bo tzitzis bekanafos hapshutin lo yivarich. He says what you should do, you put the tzitzis when it's opened up, but you just don't say a bracha, because again, if there's a shav that has a shame beged, so maybe you're not supposed to be wearing it with a chiv of tzitzis. So he quote, this is number 12, he says, V'im kfar hitel bo tzitzis, unless you already put the tzitzis on it. So in this, the Ber Halacha says, she'af im yechalkenu l'shtayim, even if it's divided into two, okay, so let's see this first question, or actually it's the second question listed here. Is a garment which is too long to be worn required to have tzitzis? So as we have explained, there is an uncertainty regarding a garment in which the sides were folded but not sewn down. Preferably, one should avoid wearing such a garment. If one had no choice but to wear this folded garment, he should follow the view of the Shulchan Aruch. If a garment is so long that it cannot be worn unless it's folded, the poskim disagree about whether it's required to have tzitzis at all. Practically, if one must wear this garment, he should place the tzitzis on the original corners and wear it without a bracha. Okay. Fine. So we also had the Biur Musafim, number 16, addresses another question about the issue about toisif. So the question that we asked is, can a person wear a talus with 5 tzitzis? So he says, what happens if you put tzitzis on tzitzis? So you can, again, if your intention was to memavatl the first one, you just remove the first one. But if the issue is that you wanted to be able to just be moisif, so that's an issue about toisif. He says, v'afashul achar b'das hatols tzitzis hashniya over bal toisif, even though let's say you had kavana, but it seems like an issue about toisif, the imun his chavin levatel rishon, if you didn't have intention to remove the first strings, the imkain talis psula. Therefore, the talis is puzzle. V'yoyol, it shouldn't help anymore. Sheyachto chasatzitzis rishayna, cutting the first one shouldn't help, and because now it's going to be an issue of tasabum and also, as we said, because at the time that right now there's two strings, so it's puzzle. By you removing it, the other one that's there, it's not good. You should have to untie it and then retie those strings. So you didn't do it. He says, no, it's ki'il like you just put the second one. The Chazon Ish says, ba'atolos hashniya, even the putting the second one, yesh b'kach seres psul, she'im yilvash kach es atalos, you have a bal taisef. The problem is, if you wear it the way it is right now, there is an issue of bal taisef. Regardless of if you were going to be mavatal it, before you cut it off, there's still an issue. Okay, so he asks a similar type of question again: can a person wear a talis with 5 tzitzis? So if one adds tzitzis strings to a garment which already had sufficient tzitzis with the intention of adding to the mitzvah, then that's a prohibition of bal taisef. The talis is not kosher unless the extra strings are removed. The Shulchan Aruch rules that all the strings must be removed, and then the correct number of strings should be retied to the garment. If, however, the new strings were originally added with the intention of nullifying the first strings, it's sufficient just to take off the original strings. The Ramah maintains that under all circumstances, as soon as the strings are removed, whether from the original or the new strings, the tzitzis are kosher, which again is what we saw and also the Ramah explaining this. The last question is, can the corners of a garment be relocated? This is actually what we discussed a little bit yesterday. If the entire edge of a garment is folded and sewn down, tzitzis should be affixed on the newly formed corners and not their original spots. If the sides were only folded but not sewn, the Shulchan Aruch rules that the tzitzis should be connected to the original corners and not to the newly formed corners. The Ramah maintains that they should be attached to the newly formed corners, but concedes that a bracha should not be made on such a talis. Some Achronim understand the Ramah's position to that tzitzis should be affixed on both the former and present corners. Adkan.